Hello and welcome to Wednesday Wisdom with Will. This is a series where we share our knowledge about generative AI with the startup ecosystem. Wise Will is our in-house Gen AI evangelist and co-founder Capria Ventures, Will Poole.
Good to be here, Sandhya.
I recently read two articles, one by the Institute of Public Policy Research that talks about really the apocalypse of jobs and how the most impacted, everyone's going to be impacted. They say there'll be about 8 million job losses in the UK, and the most impacted will be women, youth, and low-skilled labor. Right? At the other end of the spectrum, I read the article by the Harvard Business School, where they talk about how humans outshine AI when it comes to adapting to change. And really, I loved that article because it talks about the possibility of AI flying systems, flying aircrafts and performing surgeries. But the one thing AI really has to do, as well as humans, is to be able to adapt to changing situations, which we humans do really well. Given both these articles and in the context of jobs, what do you have to say?
The second article, the HBR article, provides the context by which you can think about the problems with the first article. And that's simply that humans are fundamentally adaptable. And so the thought that we're going to lose 8 million jobs presumes that those humans in those jobs are not adaptable. I think it is a somewhat of a static view of where things are. So I think that the second article provides the framework to think about what's really important. Let me also come back and say I'm an optimist. I'm a technology optimist, and I've been one for about 43 years, maybe, a really long time. And you can't be an entrepreneur and an optimist for that long. And sit around and spend a lot of time on the doom and gloom side of the world. And so I just don't. And what I like to think about and what I like to guide our founders that I work with, and I like to find other founders to work with, are people that are looking at the positive side, the glass half full side of the equation, right? It's not half empty, it's half full. And let's talk about that. And let's talk about how AI is going to enable humans to be more adaptable. It's going to enable them to spend time on doing things that humans do best.
I want to stay with the theme of jobs and move slightly to its cousin, skilling, in a sense. In our section, What's Up Global South, our focus at Capria Ventures is singularly the Global South. And I know from the work I've done previously linked to jobs that skilling is an area a lot of people have furtively addressed but never completely discovered what the answer is. And suddenly you have the lay of generative AI and the possibility of actually finding that answer. What are your thoughts on generative AI and skilling linked to jobs?
Way back in the day, we were looking at, in the ed tech domain, we're looking at things for helping in teacher training, right? Because one of the big problems, you got new teachers coming in, you train them. Well, you spend money training them and then they move on somewhere else, and all of a sudden you're on a treadmill, you got to bring in some more new teachers and train them. And the return on investment isn't there. Well, how about if the AI can do that skilling? And it can do that skilling in all kinds of domains. It can take a teacher and help make a mediocre teacher into a much better teacher. It can take a blue-collar worker who does not speak well enough to be able to work as a stockist somewhere in a back office and teach them to speak well enough such that they can now maybe work in a front office. It can take all kinds of people, and with virtually no or very minimal cost per user per month, it can offer customized skilling, right? It can adapt to the needs and the capabilities and the desires of that person and help them up their game. And it can do it on their own terms, at their own speed, and with in their own language, whatever dialect they may speak. And it can do that in a way that's truly cost effective. I think from that perspective, I'm really bullish about skilling and AI, much more so than, again, the articles we talked about a minute ago, where they're saying, well, the AI is going to take jobs away. Well, at the same time, it's going to skill people to do better jobs, right, that they weren't doing before.
I want to move slightly beyond productivity in jobs. zoom out to a humanity level, because every time we talk about generative AI or AI, and while some of the discussions are around jobs and productivity, there's also the parallel conversation on the moral conundrum and humanity and the impact of AI on humanity. And I know researchers in Denmark are using data and generative AI to predict the different stages of human lives and really to understand the implication and risks of AI. What does this all mean, though?
Let me start by saying, and again, I don't want to get into a long public policy debate here because we can talk about this for a long time. But I do think that every country in the world is going to have to embrace this question hard on, deep into this question around what do you allow and not allow relative to the decisions to be made that are guided by an AI that may not actually be in any way transparent in terms of how it works.
We've been doing, when I say we, it's largely led by you and the team that you've been working with on really nurturing a lot of our founders and how they can apply generative AI to really help scale their businesses faster and better in the world we live in now. And we have a fine example in 5C. 5C is a fabulous example of applying generative AI and seeing very significant outcomes very quickly. I recently spoke to Kalyan, and he was saying in a radiologist's lifetime, they probably examine about 90,000 scans, and 5C has already looked at about 10 million scans. I could have got that number a bit wrong, but significantly large, right? And so we'll talk to us about 5C in the context of generative AI and what it means.
So they're as you know, India's largest teleradiology network, right? And so telediagnostics, they started with radiology. So they can take a scan from a scanner anywhere in the country, put that in front of the right radiologist, have the radiologist read it, and provide the results back to the referring physician that the patient has been working with. Now, they were doing this work long before generative AI came on the scene. And this whole idea of applying radiology applying AI to look at radiology is not new, right? The smart thing that they've done is twofold. One is they've built machine learning models to look at the images that come out of Indian radiology workflow, which are not the same as everywhere else, and the quality of images that they get, the quantity of images they get, and the type of problems and pathologies that are found. So they've been building those models, if you will, and I think they have 8 of them that are approved for basically doing the job of a radiologist, to look at that image and say, problem here, no problem anywhere else, right? So they've been doing that for a while. So that's job 0, which is use machine learning to help radiologists do a better job. Then the radiologist then can look at that and say, oh, the software found this problem. I agree that's a problem. It missed this problem over here. It found something I missed over here. And now it creates what are called findings. So the interesting thing is there's now a whole nother project where the radiologist has to explain what's in the image, right? Explain what they see. That's where generative AI comes in. So what they're doing at 5C Network is to help the radiologist better articulate what they are seeing and not seeing in one of these images in ordinary medical language for a beginning. That's where you've got to start, right? It's very precise terminology. And they also can catch errors, right? So the radiologist maybe copies and pastes some things that they see, and then they can say, hey, wait a minute, you missed something here, or you have something here that's not inconsistent. So by using the generative AI to understand language, it can then help that radiologist produce a more accurate and more understandably clear report, which then goes back to the physician who's taking care of the patient. They also use AI at the front end of their process to route images. So for example, if they get a CT scan of a head and they see a brain bleed, they can then say, hey, we need to get this done right away. Because we need to, if it's a brain bleed, right, you got to get that person probably into an operating room, right, and get a saw out to make sure that you save their life. But if there's no brain bleed, maybe you're not in a hurry, right? So you can do triage. That's one thing they do. They then help them look at the images, whether they're abdomen or brain or shoulder, whatever they are. They help them look at these images and do a better job. And finally, they can also do quality control.
I think that's a good note for us to end our conversation today, Will. I hope all the founders listening in gain something from this conversation, and we'll be back in 2 weeks again with Wise Will and Wednesday Wisdom with Will. Thank you, Will.
Looking forward to it.